happening, guys? Hope everybody is doing well out there in spray wash land. We'll get a couple of people on here before we start yakking too much. Jeremy, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good, man. How are you doing?
It's Monday.
I hear you.
It's Monday in retail, man. It's always
and also things starting to kick off, I'm sure, with everybody wanting new supplies and all that.
It has been extremely busy. Like, from 8:30 till 4 o'clock today, there was always at least one person in the store.
When does the Florida season? When does that typically start?
Well, it depends on what part of Florida you're in. Like right now, we're getting heavily into pollen up here, and our pollen will last, I don't know, till May, solidly until May.
Same with us then. Okay.
We start out with, the Japanese the Japanese magnolias. That's a sign that spring is coming. They're pretty much all bloom now. Then you start getting the red buds and the wisteria, and now we're in the azaleas. Pretty soon, the oaks with the curlicues coming down. In fact, I went out and emptied my pool strainer out earlier, and it was full. I mean, just mounded over in the pool from coming down from the live oak. And then whenever the pine trees start, then it gets really insane.
What all you stocking up on this year for these new products and stuff?
We kind of got it dialed in. I mean, Gold Assassin, all the Agent products, Agent Halt, Gold Assassin, Apple Wash. Craig's products are good. Carlos's products are great. So yeah,
that's awesome. I need to order some more Gold Assassin from you while I'm thinking about it. So it's always the stuff that you forget, like, oh, I should have called Ray.
Oh crap, I need the stuff that really works there. It's just whenever you start inventorying your stuff, go and look at what you have the least of, and you'll remember the stuff that you have the most of is because you don't use it that much.
Oh, exactly right. Yeah. Well, mine is my guys will go, I told you a week ago we need that. I'm like,
it is so easy I find myself, and it's horrible because I find myself just forgetting stuff. Just it's how it is being a business.
Oh, yeah.
You're getting pulled, 1,000 different ways, and man, it's just, I'll call you right back. And there's some people that, and I truly mean to call them back, and I don't. But I've got 3 people at the counter.
I totally understand that. I totally understand that.
It's rough, and probably the biggest lie that I tell myself on any daily given time is that I'll remember that. Because no, I won't.
I totally understand. Or I'll get that text from somebody, and
hey, where are you?
They're like, oh yeah, I'll call you back right now.
I literally had one the other day. It was something I can't even remember what it was, but it was something really important. And I knew that I could leave myself notes on the phone all I want, that's not going to help. I went and took a piece of notebook paper or a loose leaf paper that long, 11 by 8.5, wrote what it was I had on there, and went out and stuck it in my truck handle. So I literally had to touch it to
physically touch it. I totally understand that.
And ironically, because what we're talking about tonight, if you want to talk about a cool segue into it, and this was totally unplanned.
Yes.
But the it's creating the systems, and one of the things that you specialize in with your standard operating procedures is creating those systems to actually to do that. I've gotten to where, Tanya makes me go in early 2 days a week to catch up on just paperwork stuff, just paperwork. Yeah. Got to go in like two days a week to do that, where it's quiet. The phones aren't ringing yet.
That's the key word there.
Yeah, that's a huge one. Because you want to answer the phones. You don't want to just, go and not talk to people. So
Yeah, and
Uh,
honestly, in all honesty, I'm not the best organized person in the
well,
world. Ask my wife. I
well,
don't want to be.
and hence systems,
Yeah.
hence the
Mm,
SOPs, hence the doing things like that. And you know, just coming off the heels of this conference in Orlando, it's it's one of those things that you know, sure, there's a few of us that'll catch a, you know, even the blind hog finds the acorn every now and then.
exactly. Exactly.
But if you look at that cadre of speakers that was down there, if you really and truly look at any successful multi-$100,000 or multi-truck washing company out there, they've got systems in place.
Yeah.
The systems may suck, but I guarantee you,
Yeah.
even that owner that's running his absolute rear end off every day, just going, oh, I can't stand it. His discombobulation is actually a system for him.
Yeah.
But you're not going to actually expand and get up and go and get
No.
better
No.
without.
And the thing with mine, people don't understand. Mine was created out of necessity from OSHA,
Yeah.
and that's
There is that.
hey Lou, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, and that's I know you guys have touched on it before, but um, you know, OSHA, when you get that phone call, um, and saying, "Hey, I need to meet you. I'm with OSHA, and I need to meet you down at the shop,"
Mhm.
and I'm going, "What? Like, I have like 3 employees. Like, how does that even?"
What do you mean, OSHA?
How does that even like how does that even work? Like I don't,
But I read online that if I had less than 4 employees, that I was OSHA exempt.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I can tell you from experience that does not go over well.
Well,
So yeah,
it's like you're confusing OSHA and workers' comp,
yes,
buddy. I
yes,
mean, you
yes.
know.
And that is the thing that it really whew, boy, I taught a class, well, I've taught several classes on it. And it's I'm trying to find apologize for looking at my screen. I'm trying to get a coupon code going for today. And again, if I had systems in place, I would have had this done this morning. But I'm trying to get a coupon code in place so I can give that to everybody. But um, yeah, the thing with that was they come knocking on the door, and it took me it took me. I'm not gonna lie to you. It took me about 3 months to get everything um, where I needed it to be.
So,
To be
question: whenever
compliant.
you got OSHA inspected, was it because of something that happened, or was
No,
it more of just a hey, we're checking on
nope. It was an
good,
employee complaint.
hardworking business owners?
So I had a guy that worked for me at the time, and the only reason I knew it, I had 2 full-time employees and 1 or 2 part-time guys, and the rest of the part-time guys were my family. So, they got I got a call and said that we have an employee complaint, and, our employee how'd they word that? Employee, complaint, and I was just about to fire this guy, um, and we had a
And
come to Jesus meeting.
yep.
Sorry, headset's all, so I think he saw the writing on the wall, and he was gonna show everybody and do all that whatever junk, and well, he actually, got his stuff together, and he had made the comment to me, um, and I'm probably Ray, you know me, and you know,
Mhm.
I'm easy to get along with him. He's like
Yeah,
me, you and me are kind of the
can't get
same.
along with Jeremy.
Uh,
There's a
yeah,
problem with you.
yeah. There's something there.
Not, yeah, it's not
Um,
Jeremy.
yeah, it's so I'm very easy to get along with him. I like to think of myself as a easygoing boss, and so I this guy had said something to me in the fact of his girlfriend had broke up with him, and so he said I called. She gets Social Security. I called the Social Security Administration, and something I'm sure I got her into a big mess, and kind of stuck in the back of my head, like, he was just vindictive. And so I get a knock at the
Hold on one
door.
second. I love you, buddy.
Hey, man, that
Hey,
key's getting big. Good grief. How you doing,
everybody.
buddy? You are getting big.
He is. Oh, that's horrible. So I'm sorry. So Social Security Administration.
Yeah, so he said something about he called his girlfriend for Social Security something with her. I don't really remember. It was I kind of went in the back of my head like, that's kind of vindictive. And so I just stuck it in the back of my head, and actually the guy was a pretty good employee. He turned out to be was doing pretty good. We were fixing to get rid of him, and it was probably about 3 months after our fixed to come to Jesus meeting, me fixing to fire him. That's when I get my call from OSHA, and the complaint was, how was the word? It was improper storage of caustic soda beads, and it was just like caustic soda. That's what we use, the term we use.
Right.
So then he said, yeah, it was an employee complaint, and I can't headhunt.
Sodium hydroxide or not.
I don't. Yeah, it's sodium. And the funny part about it is, I was compliant with that. That was the funny part about it, is I was compliant. And when OSHA comes in, like,
yeah, they don't look at one. They don't look at one thing, do they?
No. I was looking at 18 infractions, and now mind you, right at the time, I had it was enough that I could get my 1500 Silverado in straightway, and then this part over here, you could probably, I couldn't even turn the truck around. Right. So it maybe like 600 square foot, maybe 400 square feet, probably. It was just something. Actually, we had a lot at the time, a locked lot that we kept all of our vehicles and everything in, and that was probably 15 minutes away from the shop. So the guys were there at the shop maybe once a week, 10, 15 minutes at a time. And I got, he went through there and he hammered me. Spent 2 days there in that 400 square foot shop. Yeah. So I can just imagine. And I said, and I was trying to be nice and trying to be, and if you're listening out there in OSHA, I love you. I will tell you that he did find out some stuff on me later on that I don't know how he found out, but because it was not posted. But I said, no, employee complaint. I said, I don't understand. Like, what he's like, well, this is, so when was the complaint? He said, well, it's been a couple of months ago. We take it on priority. If somebody calls and it's, they're making them dangle off a roof,
right.
He said, we take it on priority. And so he went through my whole shop, did employee interviews. And the other guy was my best friend at the time. So I knew it wasn't him. Like, he literally would, do anything for me.
Take a bullet for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's kind of like, I know who this is. He's like, can't headhunt, can't fire him, can't do anything. And can't do anything to anybody. And that's another thing too. Like, it was going into the winter time, and like, you can't deduct their hours. You can't, it was just, so I had a list of about 16 different violations, everything from the cover that goes on your electrical panel, the door. I didn't have that on there. That was a landlord deal. He was actually electrician, didn't have the door on there. Didn't have that. Didn't have what's the other thing? Didn't have exit sign. Now, mind you, this is someplace that guys didn't go. We didn't meet there every day.
You kept the truck.
We didn't keep the truck there. We kept some supplies there. We actually kept all of our SH and everything at the lot. We had a lot about 15 minutes away that had where we had our truck and trailers. It was in a gated.
So they were head hunting.
Yeah. And he was, he was just
This was
nice.
for ostensible purposes. This was a storage shed.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. Exactly, that's what it is. We worked on if it was raining, we go out there and maybe work on some stuff or something, put together some hoses or, you know.
Mhm.
So I had, like I said, 16 infractions. I think didn't have a we had a grinder, table grinder, on the table, and it those little deflectors that are on there. Um, that one we didn't have one of those on there. Let's see here. That was missing. Didn't have exit signs. Didn't have, which, mind you, there was a garage door in and a door right beside it. That was it. There was no back door, no front door, but we didn't have marked um,
Exit, yeah.
exit signs. Um, didn't have fire extinguishers. Didn't have an eye wash station. Didn't. The biggest thing that got me was, and this is part of the systems, was they uh he wanted to see my written hazardous communication plan.
Plan. Yep.
And I said, my what?
Mhm.
No clue what that is, sir. And
I
um
just referred somebody to you recently on that because that was literally part of their bid package they were showing me. And they're like, we need a written what the heck is that? And I was like, well, we used to use Jeremy's.
yeah. So what that is it's a simple three, I think mine's 3 pages, I think. But what it is, it involves my whole, in order to have that, you have to have in fact, I'll just pull it up real quick here. Um, written hazardous communication plan. Um, so in order to have a written hazardous communication plan, you have to, it's about a bunch of big words. It implements who is your facilities coordinator
Mhm.
administrating the hazmat communication program. It So you have to have your SDS sheets in compliance with part of this. You have to have SDS sheets, and that's something else that got busted over. Didn't have SDS sheets, and MSDS sheets is what they call them back then. And it does your inventory, who the person is, which everything was me, and everything has to be labeled, and the employee information. So, like, here's the employee information. Section 7: all employees are provided training and information on hazardous chemicals in the work areas at the time of their initial assignment, whether a new hazard is introduced in the work area. Employees are informed of the existence of and the requirements of OSHA standard communication, the standard for OSHA, components of the hazardous communication plan. So it's a bunch of big wording. It goes into employee training, and the task and what happens, and who, basically that I'm in charge, and I have, in order to have this in compliance, the written hazardous communication plan, you have to have an employee handbook and you have to have a safety manual. And so, we had our normal, hiring stuff that we had, our I-9s, and actually most people didn't do I-9s. We had I-9s, and W-2 stuff. That's about it. And so in doing all that, so in order for me to be compliant with my written hazardous communication, they don't tell you you have to have a employee handbook or a safety manual. But in order for that to work, you have to have both of those
Right. Right. Yeah.
in there. So it's a
And
kind of a roundabout.
I want to answer something real quick. And let me stop you on one sec.
Yeah.
Sean Gross commented and said, "Hey, I had systems in place. They were called Tanya Burke," which is true in a lot of ways. And I'll never forget that our first thing, one of the reasons that where we got legal and we got real religious, real suddenly, we had an employee who said, my mom and our guys were paid, we were paying, 10, early on, second, third year
Yeah.
of existence, you're a 1099 employee. Okay. Yeah, sure. We'll, do that. Well, then all of a sudden came an overtime question. And so we would have our employees submit every 2 weeks. Well, I had overtime. So suddenly it's like they were at 25 hours one week and 42 hours the other week. And well, in Ray's mind, Okay, well, you haven't done 80 hours since our pay period is 2
Yeah.
weeks.
Yeah.
Au contraire, mon frere, it's
Yes. That's not
40
how that
hours a
works.
week. And as a matter of fact, even though technically you're not owed overtime because you're a 1099 employee, because of the way that I'm really kind of skirting the whole world there,
Mhm.
you are owed overtime. And not only whenever we started reading up on the penalties and the potential issues
Oh,
on
yeah.
that, we realized what we were doing. We went back to every employee. I think we had 3 employees at the time. They all got handed checks going, we have recalculated
Yep.
your time since you have been employed, and thank you very much. Here's the check, making sure
Yeah.
we're all squared up now. Tanya was pissed at me. But I think that same week we wound up joining a payroll service because we realized we've really kind of dodged a bullet right there.
Best money I've ever spent
Yep,
is
absolutely. And
is
somebody, Omar, and thank you, Tom, for saying a little Finn. So good evening, gents. I know you guys just started. If you're taking questions, it's a bit off topic. Omar, feel free to toss your questions out there, and we'll get to it. As we get breaks in that conversation. Tommy's saying, hey, if OSHA comes, you better get your 55 gallons of Vaseline out because they fixing to stretch you out.
yes, sir.
It wasn't a marathon, it was a 5K, but that's basically like me running a marathon this weekend. Yeah, and Tommy's saying this again. Once a complaint has been filed, the giant has woken.
Yes.
We
Yes.
have a very good friend that was in PC and Panama City, and I'm
Mhm.
not going to mention any names, but you'll probably remember who it was. But he had a little painting crew. Was not even his main gig. I mean, they soft wash, pressure washed. They were out there painting a house, and the front porch was more than 6 foot off, and his painters were not strapped in, even though they were on. He, in his opinion, they did not need fall protection, and it wound up being a $12,000 fine for
Yeah.
his part-time service that he's literally doing it just to keep his guys busy in
Yep.
the winter time.
Yep.
Um, and he got whacked for it.
Yeah. That is.
And it wasn't even a complaint; it was a drive-by in a neighborhood.
Oh, yeah. 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 I've heard of guys finally found my after us talking 15 minutes. I finally found my coupons. Um. um. The I've heard of guys actually. If you remember, uh, Chris Lamborghini's from window
WCR.
cleaning. Yeah, they got caught. Some guy was driving on an OSHA representative was driving onto an on ramp, and they were actually cleaning windows on a house. And the way their ladder was set up, they didn't have the the um, the ladder guards out, and so he come back. I think that cost him like $25,000, if I remember right. I'm going
One,
off the top
one
of
of
my
my
head.
friends in California was set up, and according, obviously there's two sides to every story, but he said they were getting set up to do a gas station in Napa, and lady pulls right. He's like, we hadn't even started washing yet, according to him. Um, Lady comes by with another lady in the car, and it was an OSHA inspector that was off duty who told him, yeah, we've actually been out to dinner, and I saw you, here with the pressure washing, and you're not set, and wound up, I'm sorry, she wasn't OSHA, she was um, EPA, but he wound up getting a fine because he didn't have his stuff in place for water mitigation yet,
Mhm.
even though according to him he was just setting up.
Yeah.
But again, these people, and it doesn't matter if it's EPA or OSHA or whoever is a regulatory agency, it's not like these regulatory agencies um, take time off necessarily. You may think you're safe because you're working at X amount of time, but if somebody wants to do it, they don't care if they're on the clock or not.
No, no, yeah, they they uh some of these guys get pretty It's like some of the other three-letter agencies. They just get a uh, kind of get a thrill. You have certain guys that are just get a thrill from doing uh, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that was the case with us. Is he treated it like we were had 500 employees,
Yeah.
and it was funny. It was funny, not funny, but funny. Um, I figured out I could get his reaction to why can't I keep on code cannot be created for what now? Sorry. Um, that's weird. Uh, anyway, I couldn't get a straight answer out of it. I can get a definite no, but I couldn't get a straight answer.
Right.
So I kind of figured out the um he would tell me um I'd ask him, say, "Hey, can I do this?" Like, when he was there, I was asking him about exit signs. Well, get an exit sign put in a existing building. Back then we didn't. This is about 10 years ago. Back then, we didn't have the cheap stuff you can get off Amazon as frequent. You still had to get everything wired in. It was going to be
You
about
had to
4.
go
Yeah,
call the fire protection company,
yeah,
and they were going to
yeah.
call an electrician, and
And so I asked him about. I found these glow. They take the reflection of the light and glow. And I was asking him some other stuff, and he'd say, "Definitely no," and then he'd say, "I've seen that done before."
yeah,
Okay. All right. And so an eye wash station. So I'm thinking to myself, I gotta go to Granger and go buy this
yeah,
$1,000 eye wash station,
mhm,
you know, to put in this thing that nobody's ever at. And so I asked him, I said, can we just have like a hose? Like does it have to, can I put a shower in? Can I put a shower
right,
overhead? And he's like, "I see that done before." He's like, "Can they access their, eyes and flush everything out with it?" So, I I hooked up. We put a sign that says "I wash station" and shower, and we just left the garden hose there in the right over by a drain, and
nice.
it was fine with him. But
Mhm, mhm.
here's the thing with OSHA, people don't understand. You don't get it's not like a police officer that comes over and you get a fix it ticket. And and there's no rhyme or reason to what they do. There is no they can be as nice as they want, they can be as mean as they want. So I'm part of the Home Builders Association for my workman's comp. And part of the Home Builders Association has a division there's that one guy that's all he does is he does OSHA
Yep.
stuff. He goes around and talks to every business and everything. So he helps people like me when that
I,
happens.
I literally, the one note that I have right there, it says insurance inspection, and
Yep.
I know
Yep.
exactly where you're
Yep.
going on that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he I called him and said, "Hey, help." Like, I don't know. He said, so he came to my office and he looked at everything, looked at all the stuff that was printed out, and he said, "I'm gonna be honest with you." He said, "You're looking at about I was looking at close to 100 grand worth of fines."
Mhm.
He said, "In all honesty, of what I've seen," he said, uh, "you'll be lucky." He said, I would count it very lucky if you get out for under basically $20,000.
Mm.
Um, and he said, but he said, this is kind of on the higher end. He said, that's the cheapest I've ever seen anybody get out is 20,000 in something like this. He said, I'm just setting your expectations so you know what to expect. He said, chances are it's probably gonna be the 60, $80,000. And I'm like, well, I can't, what am
Great.
I gonna do? Like I'm out of business now at this point. Um, and so I created this system out of necessity. And the reason I came about doing this is I literally I made these SDS booklets, and you've got I think you've got my
Yeah.
SDS
Oh yeah.
books.
Oh yeah. Multiples. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, and when I put it together, I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm just the train's going through my head. I was like, why do we not have anybody making these things?
Yeah.
Because to do it professionally, it took me to make it where it looks good.
Yep.
And I wasn't happy with it either. But and that's the reason why I actually started selling them, is because I wanted the tabs and the professional looking tabs in it. I wanted professional as can be. So when we made them, I made the first one just to be compliant. It took me and my office manager 2 days, spent about $80 worth of, ink cartridges because we printed everything out, 3-hole
Mhm.
punched everything, got the better paper, and so I thought, well, I said, I didn't have the best paper, and I was like, "I want something that's gonna hold up." That's I want something long term, I want it to hold up, and I also want tabs in it. Um, the time we offer the digital, version with ours also, and that was one of the things that I asked him, I said, "Can we have just digital?" And he said, uh and he they may have changed I haven't talked to an OSHA person in the last 10 years, but
It has to be readily
readily available.
accessible.
That's what he's saying. He said, "So if they get a wreck and they flip their vehicle and their phone goes flying somewhere,
Yeah. Is
how
that
would
readily
it
accessible?
is that re does anybody know where that's at?" Like,
Or if they pull you over in a dead zone,
yeah,
is it
yeah,
readily
yeah.
accessible,
Is it readily accessible? It basically is what his wording is. So
And
he
also, and I want everybody out here to think about this. Probably what people don't realize more than anything in the world, and you're talking to a guy that's been through the penultimate problem with the business here, but once the toothpaste is squeezed out of that tube, you're not putting it back in,
no.
not without getting shit all over yourself. And,
Mhm.
and as you learn, whenever you get the stack of citations out there, yeah, you might be able to mitigate it. You might be able to sit there and get it reduced on there, but you're never not going to be an OSHA violator and not be listed as Jeremy Keifer major violator kind of guy. You're going to have
Mhm.
that. It will impact your insurance rates. It will impact everything about your professional life on there, doing things like that. So you're better off to go ahead and deal with it head on and just get it. Now, you have a wreck. I'll tell you what, you will get the call about where's your SDS sheet,
Yeah, yeah.
because the firefighters are going to want to see your SDS sheet to see what they're dealing with.
So I had another instance. Let me finish up that because you and I are both the same thing. We chase rabbits, but don't let me forget about getting the whole fire department hazmat coming out to my other shop. So yeah, so um, when he called, so I was putting together all this stuff, and in my mind, I'm like, why does nobody having this stuff already in place? It took me, um, I want to say it took me about 3 months of putting together this, getting different manuals, putting
Right.
stuff together, finding out legality of what my state does is different than everybody else's. Um, so it took me about 3 months, and in looking back, I was like, I would gladly pay somebody $2,000 to get this,
Yeah.
get this done. I'm like, this is just, and then it hit me. I was like, somebody asked me something like, "Can I get a copy of all that stuff?" And I'm like, he's like, "I'll buy it from you." And I'm like, and I never thought of that. I just made it for us. And
Right.
I'm like, this is all in house. And I'm like, duh, I'm the person that went through all this stuff for here. I know exactly what I just did. And I said, yeah, I was like, "Let me think about it. Let me figure out what I need." And he was like, I need to buy one." He's like, you scared me half to death." So the thing that saved me, I did a thing in New Orleans. Were you there? I don't know if you were there at the time or not.
Well,
Were you
I've
there?
been when we first met.
Yeah, that was probably around the time we first met. But I did that. In fact, I was very secretive. I didn't allow Thad to put anything online
Yeah.
about it. I told everybody in the room, "Don't take pictures." At the time, I hadn't gotten fined, and I was scared out of my mind. Um, there's about a 3-month, 4-month time frame that you don't know your violations. It just come like he
Yeah.
calls you and says, "Hey, here, surprise." Um,
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. So, I went and did that. I think that was December. That was February. I did a class in New Orleans, And I mean, I was panicking because I didn't want anybody else to know, but I was scared out of my mind. And I was like, hey, I don't want this happening to anybody else.
Mhm.
And so I really want to, Thad asked me he said, I really want you to teach this class.
Right.
And I was like, I really, I don't want OSHA to find out I taught this class. He's like, well, just tell what happened to you, tell your story, tell how you remedied it, what we can do to, he said, cause I'm scared. Uh, everybody was scared because everybody, they
Yeah.
all knew somebody now who got busted by OSHA. Cause everybody goes, it's not going to happen to me. And, I was one of those guys. That's only for
Mhm.
big companies.
Yeah.
So I taught this class in OSHA, or I taught this class in New Orleans. And about 4 weeks later, now mind you, there was never anything put online.
Right.
Never anything leaked out that I saw on any of the forums. We had forums back then, and stuff on Facebook, but there was nothing out there that I knew of that I taught the class. And he told me, he said, "Hey," he said, "I found out." He said that you. So he called me and told me that my fine was. My fine was, I want to say it was like $3,500. It was something dumb. Like I was going like 3,500 for which infraction? Like, I'm like, because it was $10,000 per infraction. That's what it was. It
Right.
was up to $10,000. So I was looking at $130,000. And again, this was 10 years ago when I've slept since then. He was thinking it'd be about 80. The best the guy's ever seen was like 20,000. So he's like, don't expect 20,000, expect 80,000. So he said, hey, I found out that you taught the class in New Orleans. And this is before he just told me the amount. He said, I found out, and I'm like, my heart dropped. I'm like,
Oh God. Oh God.
I'm
Yeah.
like, dude, like, he said, I heard you taught a class, I know you're a national instructor. And he's like, I heard you taught a class on OSHA. And I was like, I'm just quiet because I couldn't breathe.
Mhm.
And, like somebody just sucker punched me. And I was like, yes, sir. And he said, I wanted you to know that went a long way with us. Um, he said, I'm and I'm thinking to myself, long way is good or bad. I'm like, I don't know. Like, like, how good, I don't know. He said that, um, you have learned from the errors of what you did, and you're helping other people, um, you know, be educated. He said, I heard it was an education, deal. And, I don't know who he talked to. I don't know how he found, don't want to know how he
Right.
found out.
Well, they're
Um,
OSHA.
yeah, they're OSHA. I'm like, I don't know
That's
if
out.
he's listening to my phone. I don't know what, but anyway, he was like, that went a long way with us. That you educated other contractors of, how to be more compliant
Right.
and how to be more. And so I called and told the guy that was with our home builder association. I said, I got my fine. He's like, how much was it? And I said, you're not going to believe it. He said, was it worse than what I said it was? And I said, $3,500. And it was quiet. And I said, you there?
I've
And
never
he's
heard
like,
of a fine that
he's like,
low.
$3,500, like that's your payment a month? Like, is that your fine? Like, I don't understand. No, that's the total fine was $3,500. And he's like, you've got to be kidding me. He's like, they sending you paperwork? And I was like, yeah. He said he's mailed me stuff, but I'm like, um, he said, um, he said $3,500. That's insane. Like that is like just insane. And
Like the fines start at 35, well, 2,500, for the
yeah, yeah.
for
So he
the
he basically so he said his biggest thing was with him was the SDS sheets, and I had some form of SDS sheets there. I didn't have a book, but I
right.
had some form there, and I was trying to pull some stuff offline on my phone, but I didn't have. But the biggest thing, I didn't have my written hazardous communication plan. And so, like I said, it took me about 3 months, dedicated 3 months of putting it all together, and having my SDS sheets. And so,
And go
um,
ahead and drop that link in the comments as well. And I know
yeah,
I'm a lot of comments behind. And I want to tell a story real quick and take a sidebar here. I'm assuming this might be Gene O'Neill, but back in the restaurant, everybody can read this, but yeah, and it's not just OSHA we have to worry about. It is the labor board. It is taxes. It is all of these different agencies that actually could have jurisdiction over us. Um, Chris made the comment of how many times did I deal with OSHA, that our main gigs were big several times. I mean, we've actually gotten inspected on jobs. I will never forget my first time and I still have my crew leader call me and go, "Hey, they're doing a hotel." I wasn't at the job yet. And he's like, "OSHA's here." I was like, "What do you mean OSHA's here?" But he's like, I was like, "Are you getting inspected?" He's like, "No, this is the weirdest thing." He said, the guy came up, showed me his credentials and said, "We're with OSHA." And he goes, "I just wanted to tell you, we're staying here at this Holiday Inn. And you guys are really on point. We've been watching you work while we're having breakfast in here. And I just appreciate it that you guys are so on point." And then he looked at me, he said, "And I hope that you're still on point whenever we come back here at 4 o'clock tonight." And we were off at 3:30 that day. And we talked to the inspector, and he just said there's a lot of things that went really a long way with us. You took your employee took his harness, because we had a lift on that job, and he went and laid that harness over the basket and the lanyard, like, so you could not get into that basket without first taking the harness and moving that. The safety cones, the having the hoses clearly marked out there, stretching out a safety area for other people, the guys out there talking together. It went a long way with OSHA sitting there viewing us. And it's one of these things where you can never, ever, ever assume, in Florida, there's only 3 OSHA offices: Tampa, Tampa, Jackson, maybe 4: Tampa, Pensacola, Jacksonville, and Miami. So that's a lot of coverage over the state of Florida. But you cannot assume that OSHA is going to not inspect you, but you also cannot assume that OSHA isn't looking at you as well. And if you're ever working around a major construction project, you can bet that, like my hospital, they put on a massive addition, and I used to tell my guys, go ahead and assume that OSHA is here watching you, because I guarantee you they're inspecting those 300 laborers right there next door that are building on the addition of the wing. And it's real easy for them to go ahead and say, "Oh, look, there's some guys pressure washing over there. Let's go check on them."
Yeah. They, I just realized that I could see comments in here. I can't post any comments. I don't know how I can't post any.
Just go over to if you can see on the side, the left-hand gutter, should be the comments. And then the far left-hand gutter, there's some private chat over there. If you want to send me in the private chat, if you see that.
Yep, I see that right there.
So question, Omar, I hope you're still here, and it's been a while since you asked a question. You live in Arizona, want to start pressure washing. I'm having a hard time finding answer about how to wash houses in the desert. And you're right, you don't have any biological growth out there. You're going to use basically EBC is a fantastic. Carlos's EBC is a fantastic. It's a very mild degreaser. Agent Clean's Agent Blue is an amazing one. We have one called Farm Soap that, again, is good. That's what you need, because you're more interested in removing stuff with detergents than you are moving biological material. You're removing dirt and dust is what you're doing. And a little soap helps that. That's why we don't wash our house. That's why we don't wash our clothes in just water. If you put a little detergent in your clothes, it's
breaks that barrier,
So here's a good question. This is over SOPs. If you have a shower in the bathroom, if you still have to have an eye wash station.
So
I think you answered that question.
It's all in presentation. So you can have a steak, or you can have some, fancy thing that costs $2,000, big meal. It's all the same thing. It's all steak. So it's all in presentation. So you'll have to have that shower area marked as an eye wash station. And then you'll also have to have a safety meeting, have it probably in your safety manual that is if you have a shower in there, I would actually what we did is, for the sprayer, we actually took uh, instead of putting the big shower like they have with the pull chain shower, we used the class. But I tell guys who have the shower, there's got a lot of guys who have shower stuff, and I tell them to take that and take the handheld, make it a handheld version. That way,
Yeah.
somebody can just put it in their eyes straight in. They don't have to look up at it.
And they have those add-on shower stations.
Yeah.
And also something else they have, Granger sells these things, but they have an eye wash station in a box that's just the flood out bottle that where you don't have to have it plumbed in.
Yep.
Couple of $100 mounts to the wall.
You can get them on Amazon. They have the eye flush station thing that you got. It's just saline that you can put out on those. We have those on the truck and have those in the shop. Also, there's the eye cup thing on it. You just squirt it, and that's very easy to have, including the shower area that you've got. Now in our shop that we're in now, we have the big sink area, and I have we have it where we have a hose hooked up. So it has a drain in the bottom, so it just hooks up there, and they just flip it over to have for a shower, and
Right.
it's clearly marked eye wash station. I think it says shower station and eye wash. I think I either got two. They're either together or the same. I can't remember. But we have that. So yes, it's all in how you have it marked and all, and how you have it all in presentation. So that is so to answer your question, and this is something when the OSHA guy told me, he never would give me, like I said, never give me direct answer.
Great answer. Yeah.
And I said, I asked him, I said, and I got to had a little report. I'm with the guy for 2 days. I mean, in a 400 square foot area. So, I mean, I asked him, I said, you're not giving me direct answers. He said, it's something that, a typical 3-letter agency would say. He said, he told me, he said, today it could be fine. Tomorrow you could change this facility around and have, 10 employees working in here, and that would not work for what you're changing it up. So I can't tell you, yes, it is, right, because it's all in the environment that you're in at the time. And I'm like, that makes some sense.
Makes some sense, but yeah, I mean, so and really and truly, if you think about that, Jeremy, any of these agencies that may inspect you, and really any of our compliance in a lot of ways is nothing but a snapshot in time, because you can change things.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of ties into this comment right here, starting off, I have to say, through observation in South Florida, I've not seen any business cleaning roofs or roofing contractors installing roofs that come close to OSHA compliance as of today. I take that back. One roof, a new Tesla roof being installed, everyone had hard hats and fall protection. You're right, and so, but let's talk about OSHA compliance. And what was that? Oh man, what's that OSHA exemption, Jeremy, about being on a roof? They used to talk about that online. There's a OSHA exemption that if you're on a roof for less than a certain amount of, wait, no, there's not.
I was just saying, you lost me there. I don't know.
I mean, I'm being facetious there.
Yeah, I was like, me. I don't know.
I literally used to see it over on Pressure Washing Institute going, oh no, if you're there for less than 15 minutes, you don't have to. Bull crap. There is the only OSHA exemption. You know who's exempt from OSHA? The owner.
Yes.
The owner is exempt from OSHA. Jeremy and I, at our respective pressure washing companies, we could get up there, tap dance naked across the metal roof wearing golf cleats, and they could not say squat to us. But the minute an employee accesses that roof without proper fallen protection, there is no time there. I think about the only exemption to that, and there is a couple. One, if you're going up there to install the fall protection or to hook up the fall protection, or if there is a greater risk of wearing fall protection than not wearing fall protection.
Yes.
And I've talked to OSHA about that. Am I being too loud? Sorry. And I've talked to OSHA about that, and OSHA said, yeah, and prove that, because that's going to be your inspector's word against you.
Yeah, it's, and that's the reason why he didn't give me definitive answers, was, and it's all up to interpretation. So he would tell me yes to, or he never would tell me yes. He'd definitely tell me no. His
Yeah.
definite no, and then I've seen that done before.
Mhm.
To answer your question, Tim, you said, would you recommend just going ahead and installing an eye wash station along with having a shower? Your professional opinion as a business owner? Yeah, if you can plumb, yeah, it's all about resources and what you have. I don't know how many employees you have. Um, uh, the that is, yeah. I mean, I'm gonna say I've seen that done before. So,
And keep in mind, this doesn't have to be an outside. This doesn't have
yeah,
to be an
yeah.
inside hot and
No,
cold
this is, yeah.
water. This can literally be a splitter with a garden hose going up to
And that's what that's how we
on the
became. We
outside.
did, and that when he came to me and I found out that I was uh thought that I found out it wasn't a fix it ticket. He said he'd come back and check on a few things. And I had a majority of that stuff done within the next day. I think most of the next day I had a lot of it fixed, or a remedy to the situation. And he uh I said, "Do you come back and look at this stuff?" He said, "If we come back and look at it's not done," he said, "that's just a bigger fine."
Yeah.
So he said, this is you don't get a fix it ticket.
Right.
It's not how
Right.
this works."
Right. Right.
So, yes, Gerard, 3 dudes just looking at each other thinking about mud wrestling. Yep.
What's up, Jerry? Hope you're
Yes.
doing good, buddy. I'll talk to you in a minute.
I didn't know he was still alive. I just
So, see,
uh,
it's a thing. So, what fall protection is required for roof washing, and does the pitch of the roof change things? You know what? Actually, the pitch of the roof
yes, yes.
does change things. If you're on a 410 or lower pitch, you can use a safety monitor. You cannot be strapped in. You can use a safety monitor as long as you have clearly defined outer edge markings on there in the outer and a safety monitor who is going at all times in communication with the guy who's working on the roof, spraying the roof or installing it. That doesn't mean looking at his phone. That doesn't mean anything. And you're going to have a flagged thing with at the edge of that roof as well. So really and truly, it would be easier to go ahead and just strap in. Also, if the parapet walls are, it was
3 foot?
30, it was 36, but I think they moved it up to 42 possibly. But
I
I'd
know
have
one time it was 36. I don't remember.
one time it was
Yeah, no.
36. And at one point it was um at one point it was like 30 or 32, and then they went up to 36, but I think they may have moved it up again. So which ironically, most parapets are really down there around
Oh, yeah,
24,
like
28, and they're not high enough to be
no, no,
complete.
they're not, and you have to be, what, is it 10 foot from the edge? Is that without being
Yeah, there's I mean there is
remember
technically a way around it, but you'd be easier to
on
put.
a flat, that's a flat roof, and that's what I'm not I'm
Yeah.
saying a flat roof, you can
A
be without
flat
being
roof
strapped, right?
or a 410 or lower pitch on there. And again,
Yes.
as a business owner, you can access the roof all you want to. But the minute that your employee steps off that ladder, now you've got a problem if they don't have adequate fall
Yep,
protection on there.
yep.
Um, and it sucks, 100% sucks, but this is the law. This is the world that we live in.
Let me touch on something else that you, mentioned a little bit ago, and I had this conversation with, another guy, um, uh, a buddy of mine that, runs a business, and he pays his guys 1099s, or his guy 1099s. I can't remember, what it is, but, um, if for those of you out there who are doing that, stop,
Yeah.
stop, 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 stop. Um, that is probably one of the biggest things that's probably the biggest thing you get caught for,
Yep.
honestly, over OSHA, over anything else,
Mhm.
is, and I'm just throwing this free tip out there. Um, what you don't understand, I watched a guy that had 3 gas stations of not our ethnic.
Yeah.
He was just trying to do everything as cheap as could.
Yeah.
Paid all of his employees 1099s. There is things in place for 1099 employees.
Mhm.
Number one, you can't have them wear uniform. They have to have their own business license. You can't tell them when to work or how to work.
Or they have to bring
Um,
their own equipment.
they have to bring their own equipment. Can't use your equipment. The
You can't set a schedule that when or
yeah,
how to
yeah,
work.
yeah, yep. And they basically have to prove that they have their own business insurance and their
Mhm.
own business license. Because what they'll do is they'll come to you and go, "Hey, he's a," before they even start looking at anything else, they'll start questioning his business license
Mhm.
and everything else. And if you even went that far, um, for a time there, honestly, I let my office manager during COVID. He was at the office and he's like, "Hey, can I work from home?" He's like, because we don't have everybody there, and I'm like, "Well, I mean, technically everything's remote, so I don't." This was before COVID, when it translated into COVID part of it. I told him, I said, he worked for me 40 hours a week, and I said, honestly, I said, "You're working from home." I said, "Why don't you go as a 1099 contractor?" And it wasn't for my benefit, it was for his benefit. I said, "'Cause you can write off, a part of your house, you can write off
Mhm.
all your expense stuff that you've got." It's just, I think it'd work out better for you tax wise to do that, because I don't tell you when to answer you just your job is an office manager and you're contracted help at that point. Because you could actually freelance for somebody else also. And I said, I wouldn't be against doing that too, where answer the phone for somebody else under the company, and you just have just basically you're just an office manager for a couple companies if you wanted to. And he did that for a little bit, and then he decided that he just wanted to go back to being an employee. But that was the only way that I would do the 1099, was it benefited him because he could do some tax write off stuff with it. And uh, he was doing mileage right before that, and I said, "You could take your mileage." He had to drive about 40 minutes. Says, "You can take your mileage if you're working for me as a 1099 contractor and coming into work." I said, and he had his own office area there. I said, "You can, you got your office area here." Um, I said, "I'm not gonna tell you when to be here, but I need somebody to answer the phones at these times and stuff. And if you do that, then you can take your mileage off too." Um, and so, like I said, he even came off of that. He actually is an actual employee again back. It was just too, he just didn't want to mess with the headache of it, because it is headache for the 1099 person. But
Yep.
if you guys are doing that, here's the thing that people don't understand, right? You hit on it a second ago. If the IRS comes in, which they have a lot more people than OSHA, and
Yeah, even more under
yeah,
the new
they're
administration. It's what increased it by 30, 40,000 agents or
yeah,
something,
it's just something, yeah. So
which we've got to have. And think about. I want to go right back to this, but think about this, guys. After the free spending orgy that this country has just had during COVID years, we've got to recoup the taxes that because
mhm.
understand money doesn't just occur. We've got to go and recoup all of this stuff. So how do they recoup that? By taxes. So you can bet that taxes are going to be more enforced over the next couple of years. And I'm sorry to get
No,
back
no,
to
no,
you.
no. That's the thing. I'm looking out for you guys, because it is a lot of headache. The best thing I can recommend to you is, besides, I even have an office manager and we use payroll system.
Mhm.
Um, it's definitely well worth the payroll. I think we use Sure Payroll, if I'm not mistaken. Um, I'll have to ask my office manager to verify for sure. I don't really know for sure. I think that's what we use. But uh, and it's uh, Ray, what did you pay? $100 a month or something like that, somewhere in
Well,
there?
we use Southeast Employee Leasing, and it was, so they actually provided our workers' comp as well. I mean, they were a full service kind of gig on there. But you know what? Dovetailing into that, I mean, another great segue. You had mentioned this about the Home Builders Association with the inspection. So, guys, if you're out there and you've got your workers' comp, or you work with a payroll company, talk to them about an inspection at your shop.
Mhm.
They usually have, so like my guys at Southeast, I think we went through 3 of them and they said, hey, we want to come in and do an inspection. And it's not an adversarial inspection. It's an inspection where they're going to try to cover their own butts.
Mhm.
And by covering their own butts, they're asking you to cover your own butts as
Exactly.
well. And so Southeast would, who again was my payroll company and my workers' comp company. They did both on there. But they would literally come in and say, okay, let's go check everything out. Let me see what your fall protection systems look like. Let's check your vehicle inspection reports. Let's check your SDS manuals. Let's see how you're storing your chemicals. And this guy, he basically acted like
An OSHA.
OSHA inspector,
Yeah.
but without the power of fining me for anything.
Oh yeah. And that's the not. Yeah. So I asked the OSHA guy, and I'm sure there's companies out there that do it now, but he gave me the name of a company. It was pretty expensive. Actually, what it is they'll come out and they sold product. It's like eye wash stations and stuff like that. They'll come out and do a free audit, but you got to buy your stuff from them. And it was stupid expensive for their stuff. But I'm sure there's companies out there that'll come in and do an audit for you for a nominal fee to make sure you're OSHA compliant. And if you're, like I said, if you're part of the Home Builders Association, I know they'll come in and do it. At least where I'm at, they will. But I think let me get back to that one thing then before I forget it. The second time I had the SDS sheets saved my rear
So
end.
yeah, if the fire department has that.
Yes. Yeah. So I get a phone call. So I've as we've grown, we got bigger shops. I got out of that shop, the 400 square foot shop, and I was in Big Cotton. I was into a 900 square foot shop.
Hey,
And moving up to the east side, now we have like 3,000 square
double
feet.
double
No,
the size.
we have 3,000 just shop space now, and I still need more room. But it was we were in there, and it was a strip mall, and we had the back section. What they did is they had office space in front, and they had the back of it was shop space.
Mhm.
And somebody had leased out the front section. I think it was the owner's kid that did some kind of band thing, and they did band practice in that front section. Uh, I guess it's nice when your dad owns the strip mall, and that's what you have for
Mhm.
typically it would be $2,000 for that rental place, and he just has it just for band. So he had the back section available, so I rented that. So I get a phone call. My guys are all we were off. It was typically our Mondays is a off day for a lot of my guys, because they'll do some stuff maybe during the weekend or something like that, and we'll catch up, play catch up. And typically Mondays are off days.
Too good.
So it was on a Monday, and I get a phone call. I am about an hour and a half away wherever I was at. I don't remember where I was at, but I remember I was an hour and a half away. And the owner of the complex, I get a phone call. He goes, "Hey," he said, "there's 3 fire trucks here in the back of your shop." Now, mind you, this is like a 900 square foot shop in the back of a strip mall, So he
Yeah.
said, "I'm with the fire department here, and they need in your shop. Um, you have a chemical coming out of your shop, and if they don't, they're gonna have to break down the door." That's the reason they got a hold of me. He was on site, and he said, "Can I let him in the place?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, don't knock down the door, but he wouldn't let him knock down the door. He said, "I'm letting him." I don't know if he even asked. He just said,
Right.
"Can the fire department?"
It's not can I, it's I
Yeah,
am
yeah, he
going
was like, "I'm
to.
going to." I think it's more like what it was, and so um, the neighbors had complained about a smell in the section. They just didn't like it there, which I don't blame them. So I probably wouldn't like this area either. The neighbors complained about a smell because they took their space and made it all office space,
Right.
and so what had happened, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know, but we had our service truck we had the tanks, our 18-gallon tanks mounted on the top of them with a cage over top of it for our fuel. We had a diesel one and a gas one, and the gas going to our hot water burner, it it sprung a leak in the diesel, and it was full. So of course it was full at the time. So 18 gallons comes out of the bottom of our truck and slopes down to the back of the door. Now, mind you, this was, like I said, 800 square foot, and we parked the door, just pulling in straight in, so it was right to the back. Well, all this diesel fuel was coming out. I didn't know what it was, and I didn't know. They said he thinks it's diesel, but not sure. And so he said, "I hear somebody, is that the owner on the phone?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm Captain so and so with Huntsville Fire Department." He said, "We're fixing to get hazmat out here." He said, "Do you have any documentation of your chemicals that are in here?" I said, "Actually, I do." I said, "There's an SDS book on the wall mounted in an SDS bracket thing for SDS books." And he said, "Well, we're fixing to call hazmat." He said, "I'm going to go through this, see if we can figure it out." But I think he was, and I know a lot of you guys are firefighters, so I'm going to get I'm in law enforcement, so I'm gonna get my jab in. I think he got mad because he had to come out of his recliner, I'm pretty sure, but he, he said, "I'm fixed to call hazmat, and you're looking at a minimum of $25,000 bill for hazmat coming out. Do this hazmat cleanup because we don't know what it is, and people are getting sick from it and stuff like that." And I'm like, "I'm on my way." Like, I don't.
Yeah.
So I get there, 3 fire trucks and hazmat just pulling up. And I'm hearing, so I am just flying as best I could get there. And he said, "Okay." He said, "I got your SDS book here." And he said, "Call me when you get to the shop." And I'm expecting fire trucks, and I made it like some record time. It was crazy. And I pull up there, and there's nobody there, like literally not a single soul there. Like no fire trucks, no fire department, no, nothing. Just my door's locked back again. And I'm like, "Wait, what? I missed a meeting." So I'm looking at a $25,000 fine, and now, evidently everything's fine. And I can smell the diesel fuel, and went inside, figured out what it was. And so I called the captain back, and I said, "Hey," I said, "what do I need to do?" And he's like, "Oh," he said, "just clean up the diesel fuel." And he said, "We saw what was leaking out of it." And he said, "We knew you had diesel fuel in your SDS manual, so we knew what it was because you were compliant with that. And so instead of us having to clean it up, we it, on the scale, their hazardous scale, it didn't rectify having hazmat clean it since they knew what it was, and they could, it was in my booklet. They just said clean it up, so I didn't get a fine, I didn't get anything." Just my neighbors being mad at me because diesel fuel leaked out.
Well,
But
you bring up something really important. I mean, back in my spray wash days, I mean, I've had multiple times where we've had both diesel and gas fuel lines just all of a sudden a pinhole appears in a thing, or a tear appears in a fuel line out there, and you walk into the office, and there's fuel on the floor.
yeah,
It's a lot fumier than it is. Or if somebody doesn't cap something back, or I've had holes appear in SH lines, running 4 trucks. It happens. Crap happens on this thing, and this is part of your hazard plan, your hazard communication plan. And what do we do in case of a problem? And do we have and having those documents there.
exactly.
I will never forget. So we had our shop was next to a auto mechanic shop, and there was he at later got arrested for drugs and gun charges. My office manager was just absolutely convinced that he was cooking meth over there. They take that very, very seriously, and it was this funny, not funny, where she called, Leon County Sheriff's Department, and they wind up sending, fire department out there to go inspect his building on there. Turns out, and my, unfortunately, my neighbor later actually went to jail for guns and drug charges, but the smell that she was smelling was literally from our own office, and we had a leaky 100-gallon tank and it went up under the wall and got into the carpet of the conference room. Nobody had been into the conference room for a few days and started mildewing the carpet. Smelled like straight up cat piss. I mean, it was
Yeah,
the
yeah,
weirdest freaking thing.
yeah.
And she's like, well, I smell this cat urine smell, and they said that's what meth, that's exactly what meth smells like. And then we traced it back. I was like, well, the carpet's kind of wet in here, and it was like, oh my god! But the conference door got opened that it hadn't been into in about 3 days or something, and that's where the smell was coming from. But the smell police are a real thing, and it
yeah,
can
yeah, and that's what
problems.
that's for that one. And he did ask me if I had a written hazard communication plan. He said, "Who is your?" I said, "Me." I'm it. And so he said, "So you're going to take care of this?" And I said, "Yeah." And that was the last I heard of him. I think I still have a picture. I still have a picture of the how diesel fuel when it gets on asphalt, makes a big black area. And I have a big picture of where our tire marks of going in and out of it, and I got a picture of it somewhere. Yeah. But
Rich brings up, or hold on one sec, Jeremy. Had a friend, his employee wrecked his truck and dumped about 50 gallons of SH. Turned out the employee had just had his license suspended a few weeks prior. EPA got involved, huge fines and cleanup. Insurance did nothing because he was on a suspended license. This is part of your SOPs right there. Yep. You literally should be checking whoever's driving your trucks monthly. You should be checking to make sure they have valid licenses, because that's part of that covenant between your insurance company and you, is that only licensed legal drivers are going to be operating your vehicles. And if you have one, an unregistered vehicle, or two, an unlicensed driver, insurance does not necessarily have to pay if there's ever an incident in those things. Somebody's going to pay, but it's not.
Oh, yeah. Insurance. Yeah. Ozzy just brought up, one of my buddies texted me, and he asked me, he said, if there was the code, because I forgot to put the code up there. On the SDS manuals, if there is, let's see here, SWA SDS, so SWA SDS, you get $25 off the SDS manuals, and SWA 2023. So our manuals right now were $500. This is the best deal we've ever offered on them, and this will be valid for next probably 24 hours probably. Cool. I'm getting $100 off of those on this right here.
SWA SDS and SWA 2023. And I mean, I'll tell you what, guys, if whether you're looking to expand or not, this is the kind of documentation you freaking need in your company. If you're the single owner operator, or you've got, the one or two guys, one of the things about yours, Jeremy, you've got it for how many states are you compliant in on your stuff?
So I tell my guys, I told the guys when they get it, take about 4 or 5 hours, go through and look at the safety manual. The safety manual is pretty much statewide or federal. And
federal is federal, but some states may have some different laws.
So yeah, and they may have some extra stuff. And I tell people, hey, listen, I don't know all this stuff, and I'm not gonna. It's impossible for me to keep up with 50 states for what is valid, what isn't. And so I tell them to go through and look at it. The employee handbook is, for the most part, but one of the biggest things you have to do is if you're an at-will state, for your hiring, where Alabama's an at-will state. So about the only places that gets a little dicey in there is kind of like your city ordinances, or your county ordinances if you live in a big county in your state, but they may have some extra stuff that's not in there. And just make sure that you're I don't have anything in there for water mitigation for drains, because that is ever evolving, and I don't want to put something in there
that's going to change.
That's going to change. And so here's the other thing too, that part of your safety, what OSHA requires you to have safety meetings, document. And If I can say anything at all if you remember anything, I tell my wife all the time that 2 is 1 and 1 is none. That's one of the things. That's where you call Ray. So 2 is 1 and 1 is none. So it never fails the time that you're going to go out there to do a job out, an hour away. That's when the one ball valve that you had, or the one whatever you had, is going to break. Carry a backup for a backup.
Your booster pump dies. That's why you have an X-jet, and that's why you have a downstreamer whenever your X-jet cracks.
It's just Newton's law. I don't know how it works that way. You could literally work literally next to your building, and
something's going to crap out.
Something never is going to break. That's just how it is. It's always going to be something that's got to rush for. But 2 is 1, 1 is none. I'm sure that's an Army motto or something. I don't know where it's somebody's motto from somewhere. And the other thing is, if it's not written down, it didn't happen.
That's right.
So if it's not documented, it did not happen.
It literally did not. No. In safety, we used to have our guys. That's one of the things we have at Spray Wash Pro. We have 50 weeks of meetings, or 52 weeks of meetings, courtesy of Agent Clean that's available. That was given that he literally Andrew made for his company about. Because you're required to understand, a safety meeting isn't just a good idea. Safety meeting is literally a requirement. The toolbox talks. We need to do another one on that, about the toolbox talks, how important that is. And everybody signs off on there that they've seen that and you've done it.
And it is required in our arena, unless they've changed, it's required to have a safety meeting, monthly safety meeting. And they've always said that they're thinking about it, and then they may have changed it since then. Somebody correct me if they know. But I've always just
you should have weekly. I mean, there's a weekly toolbox talk is what OSHA calls it.
And honestly, it doesn't have to be.
Meeting is technically something different, but
it literally doesn't have to be. You don't have to go into your whole safety. It can be one thing. It's just one thing. Like, hey guys, we're going to talk today about handling hazardous material. And
when we had our accent, OSHA wanted to know with me, when was when have you discussed defensive driving with your people? When's the last time you had a driving training with that? And I was literally saying, within the last 3 weeks before this accident happened, here is the signed documentation where we did something about defensive driving.
Yep. And our safety manual has the circle of safety for the cones. That's something that is very beneficial, that I didn't even think about whenever we did it. And that's, where you put the cones, they're required to put the cones in the front. If you ever look at, do you guys do the cone safety thing, right? Do you guys do the where they put the cones out when they stop somewhere?
Yeah, you have that? The front of the truck and the back of the truck.
Yep. And your big companies like AT&T, utilities company is supposed to do it. Everybody, it's just a good practice. And I think for them, it may be, I know it's required for AT&T, but a lot of the other big businesses, if you ever notice when they park, like if they go to lunch somewhere, you'll see a cone in the front, you'll see a cone in the back. Yeah. And the reason for that is the stupidest, simplest stuff can be seen, because you have to walk around the whole entire truck before you leave. Yeah. So when you do that, you notice that whatever that thing is that, that is undone, or is, you just walk around the whole truck and look, and you're required to do that every time you get out of the vehicle and every time you get in the vehicle, because, it's in our safety manual, like you violated a safety. So here's the other thing that I tell all the guys to do. Because just handing them an employee manual, tell them to read it and sign the piece of paperwork and everything, all seems well and good. But here's the other issue you have. You got somebody who's worked for you 8 years. Okay. When's the last time they've touched that safety manual?
Right.
When's the last time they see it? So we take it, and I recommend, do I do it? No, I don't do it, but I do at least yearly. But we need to do it every 6 months. have a time where you sit down with them on the clock. And by the way, something else too, if they're doing anything for, I'm just another freebie I'll throw out there. If they're doing anything for you for work, they need to be on the payroll.
Payroll. Yeah, they need to be paid
Definitely,
for that time.
yeah,
And like you said earlier, it needs to be documented. If
yep,
it's not documented, it doesn't happen. If
yep.
you're having a meeting, you need to it needs to
Everybody has
say
to sign off on it
this
that
is
they were there. Yep,
a
yep,
meeting regarding this. This is a policy meeting regarding this
yep,
on March 6th and attendees.
yep. And
Everybody,
I have put the sheets in there.
yeah,
You can have it for, like I said, it's monthly. It go in the manual. It even goes over topics and ladder safety and just give you some ideas. But
lighter safety is an easy.
Andrew's thing is amazing. It's
Oh, you should be doing lighter safety like every 3 months with your guys.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And I think somebody Ray was you said you had the Friday chats with for your safety meetings on Friday morning. So
ours are our Tuesday morning
okay.
meeting. But,
There was somebody who I was talking to that they do their safety meetings Friday mornings and they do breakfast.
Mhm.
And
That
breakfast,
was us. We brought breakfast
yeah.
in for like once monthly
Um
meeting that we
yeah,
would do, and yeah,
they did may have did the monthly meeting may have been the breakfast, and they did just weekly one. And it could be something as simple as a 10-minute
have an
safety meeting.
ongoing training program.
Yeah, yeah,
Have ongoing, and it doesn't have to. You know what? You as a business owner, you can type it up for 3-4 months in advance out there. These are
exactly.
the topics we're going to go over, but again, like you said, you doing this helped mitigate the fine with OSHA.
Yeah,
You getting out there and teaching about it. If you can go and say, look, these are the things that this is what we've done in the past. This is what we've are planning in the future out there. It's going to help. And again,
exactly.
this is a system. This is simply a system that's helping you as a business owner because
It's a blueprint. It's just
it's 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 the franchise mentality. And I mean, why do you buy a franchise? Well, because in theory with a franchise, everything is listed out. Where do you get your stuff from? How do you get your
yep.
stuff? How do you deliver your stuff? How it's the in theory, if you buy a McDonald's and you go to the McDonald's training, which you'll have to before you
They have a McDonald's University, by the way.
at
So
McDonald's University, right? But you're
mhm.
going to know not only how to build a Big Mac, you're going to know how to do the payroll. You're going to know how to
Where
keep
to buy this, where to yeah.
everything is this. Pat Clark was always good about that. He had a checklist for how to put gas in the truck.
And it's so the thing is employees are sometimes, not the brightest cookies in the bunch for things, for common sense stuff, and I've had guys put gas and diesel.
Yeah,
I've had,
and
it's
diesel and
just
gas,
it's
and
diesel.
and
It's just
but so much of it too, though, is this sounds horrible. I mean, you want your employees to do the right thing. You absolutely do. And you want to give them every tool that they need to complete their task. But a lot of this is also, as the business owner, covering your own butt in this
exactly.
too. Because, like we said earlier, when the toothpaste gets squirted out of
It's
the tube,
out. It ain't going back in. It
it
ain't
ain't
going back
going
in.
back in without a
It
big mess.
yeah.
And it never all goes back in.
Yeah, no, no. Jacob, brought up a point. I'll never forget the phone call. This has been a couple of years ago. He had bought some of our, SDS manuals, and I think he got our actual manuals, but I know the SDS he got the SDS sheets and, the SDS manual, and I get this phone call from, him on Messenger, and he's like, "Dude, I love you," screaming at me, "Dude, I love you. I love you." And I'm like, What? Like, what I missed a meeting. Like, what did I do?" I mean, he was just screaming in the phone. "You'll never believe this. This is insane." He's like, "I just got," and I'm like, "Slow down, slow down, slow down. Like, damn, what am I missing?" He's like, "Man, I think he got pulled, Jacob, remind me what it was, but anyway, he'd gotten I think pulled over by DOT or something like that, and handed him he asked him for something. He just gave him the manual, just stuck it out the window. And the guy looks at it and goes, where did you get this at? And he said, we got it. There's a guy that does them in our associations and stuff like that, that I got this from. And he's like, you know, uh, he was like, the guy that looks at it and he goes,
Mhm.
yeah, okay. Hey, have a good day.
Yep.
And Jacob's looking like, what? Like,
Mhm.
what? Like, I don't even, and you know, the guy didn't do anything. I may have just checked a few things. I don't remember, but I remember him screaming on the phone to me, like, you just saved my bacon. Just, you know,
Mhm.
he said, this just literally, and it's not anything that I've got, um, it's, I don't like reinventing the wheel. I always like to look
Yeah.
at something and how I can help with the wheel, make it better.
Yeah.
And so,
Ain't
um,
got to reinvent it. Let's just
no,
change the
yeah,
bearings up and
and I'm not in, honestly, guys, I'm not in the thing of this, I'm not in it to make, I'm there's no way I could make a living off of
so
these.
you
So,
got a SDS for dihydrogen monoxide in there?
if we ever start using it, um, yeah, yes, we do not. We do not, because that's, water. Is it not? Is it what is it? Is it water or air? I can't remember
Oh
what.
yeah, dihydrogen
Yeah,
monoxide.
yeah, yeah. I was say
Yeah.
we don't have, it's the only thing you're not required to have by OSHA, but, some guys
But
put them
you
in
know,
there.
you are actually required to have those tanks marked
Yes.
potable or non-potable water
Yep.
on there.
Yep.
That's kind of the
Yep.
funny thing. But you know, this is it though. And you think about silly things, but you mentioned, you know, you had the SDS for diesel and you had the
Yeah.
SDS for gasoline. How many guys don't ever do that?
Oh, literally, I was looking at $25,000.
Yeah. But you need if you do you have gas
If I
on a
didn't have it.
vehicle? Yeah,
Yeah,
you need
yeah.
an SDS for
If you
gasoline.
have, you're required by OSHA, if it's anything but water, and even you can have an SDS sheet, like, brace it for water. Um, if the and here's the other thing too.
Mhm.
What a lot of guys don't understand is the moment that you put an ingredient into water, I don't care if it's a drop, I don't care if it's half the gallon, half the
Now
product,
becomes a
drop or
solution.
whatever it is, it now is 100% that
That
product.
product,
The
that's right.
moment that I take and I run with, SH in a batch mix,
If you have a
it
batch mix of 200 gallons
it
with a
now
quart of SH in there,
it now becomes
guess
all
what?
SH.
You've now got 200 gallons of SH.
Eh,
And by the
200, yeah,
way, you need a hazmat endorsement to
yeah,
carry that much on
yep,
there.
yep,
Now, here's the good news, and they're practically speaking, they're not going to go and test the strength of your
no, there
S
no,
you
no,
have.
they
They don't do that. But that's the good news. But the bad news is if you've got 200 gallons, if you've got 100 gallons of anything on there that you can't prove is not water, you
yep,
got a problem.
yeah, yeah, and that's what, you know, that's where the proportion reducer was a game changer,
Yeah.
especially for this, where you carried, because technically, you know, um, anything over is it 50, no, it's a hun
It's
it's 100,
interesting. About 460 pounds. I had
yeah,
Scott um, Henderschlott, the guy from the DOT. I can't. I literally
it's
can't
under
remember.
it's under 255-gallon drums.
Yeah.
It's just, I
Right
think
here,
it's
this guy
it's like
right here,
110
Scott
gallons.
from the DOT
Yes,
compliance. I literally
yes,
in my wallet. I mean, that's how important
yep.
that guy is to me.
What was it,
Uh,
100, is it 110 gallons of SH is,
uh, Technically, but then you also have the materials of trade, which
yes,
really kind of limit you to only 8 gallons or eight gallon thing. I mean, it
yes.
gets very, very
Yeah, yeah,
confusing and
'cause
very
but
risky out there.
here's the thing.
I mean, even Scott, I asked Scott, I said, I want to tell this to my members at Spray Wash Academy.
Yeah,
I need to know
yeah,
this. And Scott literally called me, amazing guy. He called me back like 2, 3 days after the PWNA conference, and he says, kind of depends, Ray.
yeah. It's up to interpretation.
You know,
It's
it really is. A lot of this is depending on the interpretation of the officer that stops you.
yep,
And
ex e
we're
ex
like 30 minutes into it. I want to share a story because we got to start wrapping up here too soon. I will never forget one of the first time, I think it may have been the first time you and I met in I know it was the first time you and I were on a panel together. Okay.
Okay.
Now this is going back to New Orleans,
Whew,
huge
it's been a while ago.
convention.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there. I think you're on the left-hand side of me, and it was just like a cleaners expert panel. And
Well,
you
was it roof cleaners?
yeah,
It was
roof cleaners, yeah.
yep, that's
You
what it was.
looked over me and I thought it was so funny because you're on the left-hand side and you goes, you said, "You clean metal roofs?" And I looked at you and I was like, "How the hell did you know?" And you pointed at my hand because I had a cut on my, and you literally held up your left hand and you had the same exact cut.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I thought
Yes.
it was just freaking awesome. I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah, it was,
you know."
that has been a while ago.
That was a
That's
minute
been
ago.
a lot of water under the bridge. We've
A
known each
lot of
other
bleach, a lot of bleach out the hose too.
yes, yes, it is, yeah, that, um, uh,
Oh,
but yeah,
good stuff. Well, I posted these codes again.
yeah,
Guys,
and
it's
we're
one of these things. If you don't have it, get it. If you know, not only the SDS manual, but damn it, get the full Monty on here. I mean, this is one of these things that you need the full, all the compliance documents, you need the employee manuals, you need to get systems. And I know there's guys in here that joined us before that haven't watched the whole way. But seriously, guys, anybody that has scaled their business up, and it doesn't matter whether you plan to scale or not, if you do plan to scale, you need this stuff. You've got to have systems in your business. One of the best things about systems is having manuals, having it written down, having written, like I said, literally, I had somebody come in and they said this bid is asking for a written hazard communication plan. It says that I have to have that and I have to submit it with my bid. I said, I've always used Jeremy's. That's the one that I used.
why
Oh,
why reinvent the wheel?
yeah.
That's, and I love hearing, probably the thing more so than my manuals. I get guys that tell me all the time, like, "Hey, I try to put something together and, you know, um,
Mhm.
it's nowhere near like this." And in all honesty, it's not anything that I particularly just because if I'd have done it, I'd have done it halfway.
Mhm.
I did it because I had OSHA looking over my shoulder.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that it was as professional and as detailed, and meticulous as possible. So
And let's
in a way, and I'm gonna say this is very weird, but I'll say it. In a way, the OSHA thing was a blessing in disguise because I've been able to help a lot of guys with this. The SDS manual, the SDS, the SDS manual itself, I get guys all the time that will say, "Hey, listen, I got the job just because I had that professional looking book."
yeah.
And the thing that's different than just putting them in a folder, or even you can buy that folder. You can buy that folder. It's not a big
You
deal to buy
buy
that
from
folder.
Ranger. You can buy the folder
Yeah,
itself.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can buy the folder. But the
Put
thing
your own
here's the thing, and this is something that I've had people, message me before, and it's like pricing for anything else, but you get what you pay for. I have all those professionally done. I have them sent off. I get them like 50 at a time. I get them bulk punched, and then I order the binders from another company, 50 at a time. You have to order them that many so they can be listed in there. That's the reason why we don't custom make anything. I kind of just have it as a blanket and then let you add things as you go. But the paper we get, that we get the heaviest weight paper that you can get. Because the problem we had when we first did it is the moment the guys touch it, or it's in the heat and the cold and the heat and the
Oh,
cold,
yeah.
pages start coming out of it. So I said, "Hey, what's the best paper that we can put in it?" And so I can't remember what the weight is. It's a real heavyweight paper. And so we've got books that are like 5 or 6 years old that, I mean,
Oh, I
those
mean, I think I
brand new.
had mine for like 7 years, and I mean, it
Yeah,
and it got
yeah,
inherited by the new company.
yeah.
And also keep in mind, guys, think about this. Whenever you get this book, it's a growing, breathing, living document
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
And whenever you go and get a gallon can of goof off to stick in your truck, guess what you
You have
technically
to have
need?
you have
You,
to have the SDS sheet.
you
But
need to have
I
the
will tell you this, and this is the, right, as you know, I'm a reserve police officer, been in law enforcement for almost 25
Yeah.
years, something like that. And intention always goes a long way with anybody in
100%.
enforcement. So
They may
um,
not go through and look at everything on
yes,
your
yeah,
truck
yeah.
and stuff.
Like Jacob said, you know, he didn't even do anything. And he's not the first person to ever do it. I've had people before that, is it Florida that's real bad if you get stopped by DOT? I can't remember. It was one of the states, Pennsylvania or something like that. And, but, the, the, they go through and do like I mean, it's just a crazy inspection. Several guys have done it before. And one of the guys messaged me and said, "Hey, listen, I probably had the fastest inspection that's ever been done. It was like 10 minutes." And he just kind of just glanced over everything and looked at two or three, like, "Hey, point me to the SDS. Just want to look at it. What am I looking at with this?" And basically kind of asking him. And he was just, you know, "Hey, this is marked SH or whatever's way he had it marked on his tanks." And he said, "What's right here? This one right here, this tab right here." He looked about 2 or 3 different things, and he's like, "Here." He goes, "I'm not doing this." He gives his book back, and he said, "Have a great day." He said, "I wish half of the people I stopped were even you know, half of the way you are." Um, so he didn't even look at the stuff. I've had guys tell me before with the books that I had a good buddy of mine. He called me and said, "Hey, I just got in this facility." It was a GE facility that he was doing work for, or going to put a bid in, I think. And they go through your whole rig before you even go in the place. And he threw his SDS sheet or SDS manual up on top of the thing, preparing for the guy to come in there. And
Mhm,
the guy looked at him. He goes, "Is that your SDS manual
mhm.
for your stuff?" And he goes, "How thick is that thing?" And he goes, "Well, if you got that much stuff," he said, "I don't need to go through it." And he like went through and he planned on 2 hours,
Yeah.
being there 2 hours for this guy to go through and start picking through his, you know,
Our
stuff.
airport,
Yeah.
you give me that
Oh, yeah.
book, yeah, you're good, thank you.
Yeah. And it's all
Mhm.
about the intent of what
Yeah,
you're trying to do. And like Ray said, it's a living, breathing manual, SDS book. Okay.
so
SDS sheets for chemicals.
yeah,
You go,
Russ, you're better off to have it and not need it than need it and not have it on there. You're not gonna get penalized for having stuff that's
yes.
not on your
Correct.
work truck in there.
Correct. Yeah, you can have a whole library of SDS stuff. I recommend the guys have a digital version, and also recommend so you're required to have they're required to be in every shop that you're in.
Yeah.
Um, so wherever chemicals are stored, they're required to be there. They're required to be on a truck, a vehicle. Every vehicle is required to have one. And any location that uh, employees don't have access to a truck, or like if you have a storage facility, a temporary storage thing, there needs to be SDS in that because you're having chemicals that are there, transport and stuff like that. So anytime that you're with a chemical, needs to be within, you know, arm's reach or whatever, or, you know, within truck's reach or whatever. Just not saying, "Hey, I got one at the truck."
And
Um,
Dan, it definitely needs to be one in your shop.
yeah,
One needs to be sitting in your shop. And in fact, you know, where I never even realized that I went to, and this I think about the time that I got one from you, Jeremy, but I started going to got in real good with the state of Florida. And I was going around to all these facility managers, and I kept on noticing a yellow and black folder sitting literally with a chain. It
yep, yep,
was
they,
chained
yep,
to the guy's desk.
yep,
And I kept on noticing this in multiple facility managers for the state of Florida. And you know, and it was one of them, I was like, "Dude, what is that?" You know, I was pretty tight with him. He's like, "You don't have one?" I was like,
yeah.
Yeah, but just not like all that fancy and stuff." He's like, "Well, yeah, we keep all our SDSs in there. I'm sure yeah, I got that." And I think like the next day I got mine from you. Um, yeah, you know,
And
you should.
Granger sells the
The sleeve and
The
yeah.
the thing that you put it on the wall, it's got the rack,
Mhm,
and then you also can put the thing on the binder on a chain, and
mhm,
that's, I think actually that's a factory thing, if I'm not mistaken. They're
mhm.
required to have them chained down in factories for some reason, I don't remember
Well, you
why.
know, and if you're like, so we used to have them in all of our trucks, and we literally, Tanya would make them, and it would be a blue folder with a spray wash sticker logo on there. Tim, to answer your question, you know, we had the spray wash sticker on the front of it, and then you know, hand printed SDS manual. I would go to your manual, pull it out for SH. I'd pull it out for Agent Blue. I'd pull it out for, everything that we had, we knew we had on that truck that may not be, but and it was like a 10, 12 thing that, and it would sit in the driver's door. Cause I mean, that's another important thing too.
Yeah.
It's got to be readily accessible technically to the driver, and,
Yep.
and it's got to be in there. But you said you're well, obviously you're law enforcement, your law enforcement experience, whenever you think about it like this, you pull somebody over, and whenever it's yes, sir, officer. I have my insurance and registration right over here. By the way, officer, I'm reaching into my glove compartment. By the way, there may be a loaded 9mm handgun in there. I'm just letting you know that before I open this up and you see that gun, but I am going to reach over here and get this. The preparation has so much to do. Your attitude and your preparation has so much to do with any interaction with a governmental or law enforcement type agency out there.
Very, very much so. That
has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you don't believe me, next time you have an interaction, tell somebody to, go do something, go fly a kite, and then, or, be nice. I can guarantee I know that's how this going to
with their own selves, that kind of thing, and see how that works out for you there, bud. Rocket made his own SDS, then ordered a binder from Amazon, serve you well. Then you got Jeremy's and stuff that you've never even think about.
That's my buddy Ozzy. He's a great guy.
And you think about this though, that yeah, and Michael, you're right. Respect goes a huge way on there.
But there is sometimes you get that guy he's just honestly, OSHA's one of those things that
you
it doesn't
get a
matter how nice they don't care
on for it,
Yeah. Dan, to answer your question, I'm sorry, Tim. The logo you can add to, I don't know if it's for the manuals or if it's for the SDS. The SDS, you can put your sticker on there if you want to. If you're
manuals, you can put your own logo on it.
The manuals, they're all in Word documents, and that's what I tell guys. They're like, hey,
editable.
Please edit them. And the manuals are living and breathing also. Like you said with the SDS sheets, the manuals are living and breathing. I don't know if I got my point across before, but I would have my guys go through and at minimum once a year, ideally even quarterly, but every 6 months is a great time to sit and read their employee manual and their employee manual and their safety manual, and have any question time if they got questions for it, and then have them sign off that they read it. Because 8 years from now, when you have that employee that's been there with you 8 years, he's got 16 signatures that he's read this manual.
Yeah.
So when something were to happen and you go, brother, I don't know what to tell you, that's as a business owner, I've done everything in my power to be able to have that to where it needs to be, because I've got 16 signatures and he just failed to, comply with what he was supposed to do. And then now that's on him because I have a paper trail of 16 times he's read this thing. And, because of an employee stupidity of doing something, it's more on the burden of the person because you've done everything, versus just giving an employee manual and a safety manual when they first start. And then 8 years later, they don't have any clue what was in there. They don't remember that. So,
Dan's asking how much, and Dan, I honestly don't know how much they are now, but I know that Jeremy has very graciously given us a discount code right there. I just showed it for the SDS sheet.
Yeah, Dan, the manuals are $150, so you get $25 off that. And that was the SWA SDS for that one. And then the manuals are normally normally $500, and I'm giving $100 off of that with the SWA 2023. And that's I'll put that up for 24 hours on that. So
that's very kind of you.
I think to go through that. That's on my to-do list to go through there and see if there's some stuff that I can update and see if there's some more things I do. And what I'll do is, if you guys get that, anybody who gets that will will forward that new information to you guys also. So, and that does come with the digital version that you also have. That I always make the digital version an app on the guys' phones. So, like you can make your iPhone and Android, both of them can have you can make any website, you can make it basically an app button.
Right.
And I get everybody's phone out, and I have them make an SDS button
And
for
downloaded to the
yes,
phone, not
download
to go to the web and
yeah,
get it.
yeah. So, this is the digital version, and you get that free with and that's unlimited usages on those.
Yeah, and that's part of just the systems, man. I
Yeah,
mean,
and
systems. That's
it's
what we talked about last week with Dave Yesden. We're talking this week. I mean, this again, anybody that wants to grow and go on this, hell, even if you're just happy doing what you want to do, what you do, being your own guy, if you ever eventually want to scale back, get off the truck and hire somebody, you have to have systems out there, you know?
I've been off the truck now for 7 years, probably
Mhm.
5, 7 years, something like that. And you know, I don't think that I would have been able to scale off the truck as fast as I did if
Mhm.
I didn't have these systems in place. And like I said, it's not anything I went through, and I just went through and I took about 6 to 10 different uh literally I took 2 to 3 months of solid just working on this to make sure I had this base covered and this base covered, and I and took the best of everything that was there and consolidated them into one, and it's and that was my whole thing. I was in the back of my mind I was just like, why does nobody have this stupid thing? This is why does nobody offer this stupid thing? Because this is so much time consuming, and that's the reason why, when my buddy asked me if I get if he could buy a copy from me, I was like, yeah, I guess so. And then I
Wow.
was like, I guess I'm that guy now.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so,
Jeremy, we got to wrap this up. So, guys, thank y'all. I mean, I didn't really, God,
and
every time I start talking to you, we wind up bullshitting for
good
hours. So,
Lord, I can't, if I go to Tallahassee or
I
have to
know every
talk
time
to
you
you,
come down to
it's,
see me, it's been
yeah, my
forever.
wife goes, oh, you going by to see Ray? Okay, by to see it
See you
tonight?
tomorrow.
Yeah, I guess I'm gonna stay in Tallahassee, I
But
guess.
guys,
Um,
thank y'all for watching. Jeremy, thank you for your gracious and
and,
generous
and
offer. And I know you don't give these discounts to just anybody.
yes,
So,
and if anybody's got a question, I'm on Facebook under my name. I'm I don't post a lot of stuff, but
but you're out there. You're always around.
yeah,
So,
just get a hold of me if you have questions. So,
yes, sir.
great
Guys,
talking
thank
to you,
y'all
Ray.
for watching tonight. Hope this was some help to you guys, and we appreciate you. Jeremy, stick around and we'll talk for a minute here. Okay.
Okay, that'll work.